Hi, this is Patrick Kilby with Rio Products. Welcome to Rio's Tying the Fly. Today we're tying a winter steelhead fly called the Popsicle. It only uses a few materials, so it's an easy one to get started with, and it's a very productive fly that you can trust. Starting with a 1/0 hook, I prefer nickel or gold. Gold gives the most reflection in dark water, which is what is typical with winter steelhead. So that's why I have gold in here today. So if you think about this in segments, we'll call this halfway down the shank of the hook. And this would be about 1/4 where this return comes back. So we're going to start our thread somewhere in this 1/3 zone. To start thread, I hold it tight and wrap back on itself so it holds it in place. It just takes a few turns. Actually, before I trim it, I'll take one twist around and a couple more turns, and then now my thread is pretty locked on to the shank of the hook. For our Marabou, we're going to start with the orange, and I hold it by the tip and just stroke these fibers down out of the way. Tie it on, a few wraps. You can bend this back, wrap over it, and then I'm going to move my thread back up here about to the point where I want my feather to end, so my thread is waiting for me there. I will clip off this little bit. You can use hackle pliers here if you wish. I don't like hackle pliers on big feathers like this. I feel like I have a little more control because the feather will break like that if I am not careful with it. So it happens. Marabou is very brittle and can be brittle, so just be prepared for that. And just back up a little bit, do it again. And now the stem should be a little bit stronger down here, but just know it does happen. Happens to everybody. All right, so we are going to just be taking turns of this Marabou around the shank of the hook right next to itself. So if you like to wind up your garden hose on a nice tight reel and it looks all nice and tidy, that's what this looks like. It's not overlapping, it's not catching all these fibers. You'll notice I am stroking up and away back to the back of the hook to help ensure that these feather fibers do not get trapped. Once I have reached the area where my thread is waiting for me, I will do my best to clear out any so I don't trap too many down in here. Take a couple of securing turns with my thread, holding that in place. I'll put my scissors on the shank of the feather or the stem of the feather, slide it down, and then trim. That helps me find where I need to cut. So at this point, I take my toothbrush and I can just come in here and free up some of these fibers that did get trapped. It's almost inevitable. So Marabou can be a little bit unruly. So if you just dampen your fingers, have a little cup of water next to you, you can just apply some water, and now this is going to stay slicked back and out of your way to prepare for the next material. The next material is this pearl flashabou. I already have some strands ready, but I want to show you this real quick because it's something I learned a few years ago, and it's really helped me. So on your packaging, the normal move is to try to pull some out, but this material can get all wrinkly and weird on you. So if you just cut a little notch in your plastic bag, and then just using the tip of your scissors, you can reach in and pull out your 3 strands or 4 strands or however many you need, and cut those off, and the rest of it stays inside the package, nice and tidy till the next time you need it. I have 2 fibers here. So I'm going to just take these fibers and bend them around my thread. I'm going to slide this down and capture it right next to the shank of the hook. I'm going to keep hold of it, and I'm just going to come inside the end of my marabou feathers and trim those off so they don't extend beyond it. But because I held it, I'm not risking trimming any of my marabou feather fibers there. I will get to my next two, do the same thing, capture these around my thread. Then on the opposite side, the same move. Come back here, trim this off, and we are ready for our next color. This one is fluorescent fuchsia. Sometimes it's called cerise. There's different colors, but if you just go with orange, pink, and purple, you can't go wrong. I love the fly name Popsicle because it's a fun name. It makes me think of these colors as flavors, you know, grape and cherry and orange and such. We all know grape is the best. And but also you feel like a popsicle when you're fishing these things because it's wintertime and you're freezing out there. So you've already seen how we tie in that first one. So we're just going to repeat that process as we move up towards the eye of the hook. So the first time I fished this fly for winter steelhead, I caught my first winter fish on it, but I also caught a second one back to back in the same run. A lot of my friends didn't believe me, which looking back on it, I probably wouldn't have believed me either. But that's why this fly holds a special place in my fly box, because it was good to me the first time I ever used it. I like that it doesn't have any added weight to it, so I can fish this with a sink tip. So I use a short leader that's at least 12-pound test, if not 16 or 20, depending on the situation. And I let the weight of the sink tip dictate how to get the fly into the zone for that particular run. The fly is light enough that as it swings into that soft inside water, it doesn't tend to hang up very often, whereas like a lot of these big winter steelhead flies with barbell eyes and stuff will just drive into the ground and get hung up. So this one you can kind of finesse it into that soft water on the inside, which is where the fish like to be. Okay, last we have our darker color, which this happens to be called bright purple, but any purple will work. You've probably seen me do this a couple times, but I'll sometimes fold this back and secure it again. That just gives it even more security so the feather can't slip out. Trim that off, move our thread up to where we want to end, and begin turning. If this is getting too caught, you can use the tips of your scissors to free some of those up. You just don't want to cut your thread or your feather. One thing with steelhead flies is we've all been guilty of it, is crowding the eye and or building too big of a head. So with this fly, it's a great opportunity to keep this head very, very tiny and to keep it back from the eye of the hook. And if you start at that 1/3 point and work forward, you are setting yourself up for success. So a few wraps to just clean it up. And then I use a whip finish tool and I like 5 turns. So just keeping the fibers out of the way as you do this. So it just takes practice. All right, so now a little bit of whip finishing. So again, if I want to just keep that clean, a little bit of dampness on your fingers, and I like to take a little bit of thin UV resin, and I can dip in a bodkin just to get a little bit on here, and I can just apply it where I need it, trying to keep it out of the eye of the hook. Protect those threads and keeping it off of the Marabou. And then we can use our UV light. And if you have a rotating feature on your vise, you can do that, or you can move the lamp around. I really recommend at least 20 seconds on this, and to really light it up for that long. And then as you comb this, it'll start to release and dry very quickly. And that's the Popsicle. It's a great winter steelhead fly. It was created by a person named George Cook, who is also a sales rep for Rio Products. And it works well for coho salmon in particular, but my favorite for winter steelhead. I like it because it's quick and easy to tie. I can change the colors up. I can add or subtract flash. I can go bigger or smaller on the hook, and I can swing it into that inside soft water and fish it with confidence. So it has a special place in my fly box, and hopefully you enjoyed this, and I would love to hear how it does for you. So thank you.